It was supposed to be an ordinary evening, the kind we all take for granted. The sun had set behind the horizon of a quiet, unsuspecting neighborhood, where the only sounds were the distant hum of crickets and the soft glow of porch lights. It was a normal life, filled with the comforting routines of a family who felt safe behind their own four walls. But by morning, everything had changed. She was gone. There were no signs of a struggle to alert the neighbors. No shattered glass, no disturbed furniture. There was no goodbye message left on the kitchen counter, no frantic note scribbled in haste. There was just silence, a heavy, suffocating silence that filled the hallways where her laughter used to echo. This is the harrowing story of a 19-year-old girl who seemingly vanished into thin air without a single trace, and the chilling, dark truth that would eventually shock everyone to their core. Her name was Emily Carter. At 19 years old, she was the personification of promise, bright, deeply kind, and a young woman whose heart was full of ambitious dreams. She lived with her parents in a peaceful suburban town, the kind of place where people don't lock their doors and everyone knows your name. Emily had just embarked on the next big chapter of her life. She had started college, immersing herself in the study of psychology. She wanted to understand the world, to help people heal, and to explore the depths of the human mind. Her friends and classmates described her as someone who smiled often a radiant, infectious smile that could light up the dimmest room. But those who knew her best noticed something else. She was also someone who kept her internal struggles carefully hidden behind that very smile. She carried her burdens quietly, never wanting to worry the people she loved. One thing was certain. Emily wasn't the type to simply run away. She wasn't a reckless soul looking for a thrill, nor was she a careless person who would leave her family in agony. She was responsible, she was grounded, and she was loved. So, when the sun rose that morning and her room was found empty, the air in the Carter household turned cold. Everyone knew instantly something was terribly, horribly wrong. The girl who studied the mind had disappeared into a mystery that no one could have ever predicted. It was October 14th, a date that would eventually be etched into the memory of everyone in town. Emily woke up unusually late that morning, the sunlight already streaming through her window. When she finally emerged from her room, she skipped breakfast entirely, a small detail, but one that her mother found deeply unsettling. Emily was a girl of habit, and this sudden break in routine felt like the first crack in the foundation. Throughout the long hours of the day, she seemed distant, her mind clearly elsewhere. She was distracted, moving through the house like a ghost. Her digital footprint told a more active story, however. Her phone activity revealed she was texting someone constantly. It was a rapid, urgent exchange that lasted for hours, but there was one problem. No one knew who was on the other side of that screen. At around 6:30 p.m., as the shadows began to lengthen, she turned to her parents and said the last words they would ever hear from her. "I'm going out for a walk. I'll be back soon." She didn't take much with her. No bag, no heavy jacket despite the evening chill. Just her phone gripped tightly in her hand. And that was the final moment anyone saw Emily Carter alive, walking freely under the autumn sky. The minutes slowly bled into hours, and the air in the Carter home grew heavy with anxiety. 8:00 p.m., there was still no sign of Emily. Her dinner sat cold on the table. 10:00 p.m., the calls started going straight to voicemail. Her phone, her only lifeline, had stopped responding. By the stroke of midnight, the silence became unbearable, and her frantic parents finally called the police. The following morning, The neighborhood was no longer quiet. A massive search operation was launched, with officers and volunteers scouring every inch of the woods and parks. While the search parties were on the ground, investigators were reviewing the footage from nearby CCTV cameras, hoping for a lead. What they found on those grainy tapes was deeply disturbing. At 7:02 p.m., the cameras caught Emily. She was walking alone, her pace steady, appearing exactly as she had when she left her front door. But the mystery took a dark turn just 3 minutes later. A dark-colored car, sleek, tinted, and unrecognizable, slowly pulled up beside her. Emily stopped in her tracks. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. There was a moment of uncertainty that was painful to watch on the playback. Then, without a word, she reached for the handle, and she got in. There was no struggle, no sign of force. No one dragged her into that vehicle. She entered voluntarily. That single, chilling realization changed everything. The search wasn't just for a missing girl anymore. It was a search for the person she trusted enough to walk into the unknown with. With the discovery of the CCTV footage, the investigation took on a new, frantic energy. Now, the singular, haunting question remained: who was behind the wheel of that car? Police immediately began the painstaking process of tracking Emily's phone signal, hoping the digital breadcrumbs would lead them to her. The pinging tower data finally pointed to one final location, a desolate, abandoned industrial area on the outskirts of town, roughly 15 kilometers away from the safety of her neighborhood. Search teams arrived in full force, their flashlights cutting through the thick darkness of decaying warehouses and rusted machinery. At first, they found nothing but shadows and silence. But after hours of grueling, hands and knees searching through the grit, they made a discovery that sent a chill through the entire precinct. They found Emily's phone. It hadn't been lost. It had been violently smashed and carefully hidden deep under a pile of industrial debris. It was a clear, terrifying sign. Someone didn't want her to be tracked. Someone didn't want Emily to be found. While the teams were on the ground, detectives were diving into the depths of her digital life, bypassing passwords to see what Emily had been hiding. And then, in the shadows of an encrypted messaging app, they found him. A man she had been secretly talking to for weeks, hidden away from the eyes of her friends and family. His name was Daniel Reeves. He was 27 years old, nearly a decade older than the girl he had been pursuing. On paper, he seemed unremarkable. He had no serious criminal record and lived a quiet life. But to the veteran investigators on the case, something felt profoundly off. The digital records revealed a classic, predatory pattern. Emily had been messaging him for weeks, and in that time, Daniel had become a master of manipulation. He told her exactly what a 19-year-old struggling in silence needed to hear. He told her that he was the only one who truly understood her. He told her that he cared in a way her family couldn't. He mirrored her emotions and offered a shoulder to lean on until he had successfully gained her absolute trust on the night of October 14th. The messages became a trap. They had planned to meet, a secret escape from her ordinary life. Police moved in and arrested Daniel at his residence. At first, he was the picture of calm, flatly denying every allegation with a cold, rehearsed indifference. But as the interrogation continued, the evidence started stacking up like a mountain he couldn't climb over. His car was a perfect forensic match to the dark vehicle seen on the CCTV footage. GPS data from his own phone placed him exactly at the scene of the disappearance. The walls were closing in. The calm facade began to crack. The sweat began to bead on his forehead. And finally, under the pressure of the truth, He broke Diane the cold, dimly lit interrogation room. The silence was finally broken. Daniel confessed. He spoke in a low, trembling voice, claiming with a hollow desperation that it wasn't supposed to happen like this. According to his statement, the meeting began as they had planned. They met under the cover of darkness, and at first they talked. But as the minutes ticked by, the fantasy Emily had built in her mind began to shatter. The man sitting across from her wasn't the kind soul from the messages. The atmosphere grew tense. Emily, sensing the shift in his energy, felt a sudden, sharp wave of discomfort. She wanted to leave. She wanted the safety of her bedroom and the comfort of her parents' voices. But when she tried to walk away, a heated argument ignited. In a dark, explosive moment of rage, Daniel lost the last shred of his self-control. He didn't let her go. He kidnapped her, forcing her into the isolation of that abandoned industrial site, a place where her cries for help would be swallowed by the rusted iron and concrete. And there, in the shadows of a world that had forgotten that place, brief, heavy pause, he ended her life. Days later, acting on his grim directions, police recovered her body from that same desolate area. The news hit the town of Crestview like a physical blow. The community was utterly devastated. A life that had been so vibrantly full of dreams, a future dedicated to helping others through psychology, was extinguished in an instant. All because, in a moment of vulnerability, she had placed her trust in the wrong person. The story of Emily Carter is more than just a headline. It is a haunting reminder of a terrifying truth that we often choose to ignore. Not all danger looks dangerous. True evil doesn't always arrive with a snarl or a weapon. Sometimes it hides behind a mask of kind words. It disguises itself in the form of friendly, supportive messages and the carefully crafted illusion of trust. Emily wasn't reckless. She was human. She sought connection, and she was met with a predator. Her story is a tragedy that will haunt her family forever, but it must also serve as a vital warning. In a world that is more connected than ever, we must be profoundly careful about who we let into our lives. Be aware of the people you meet behind the safety of a screen. Trust your instincts when something feels even slightly off. And always, without exception, tell someone exactly where you're going. Because as we learned on that quiet October night, sometimes a single decision, a single meeting, or a single moment of misplaced trust can change everything forever. If you found Emily's story important, please share it. Every share is a reminder that could keep someone else safe. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe as we continue to uncover the truth behind more real crime stories. Stay safe.